head becoming blurred by so much said. I'm in too deep waters I tread, can't catch my breath. A shadow chasing me, a game of hide and seek. Found now have a key. All right, welcome everyone to another edition of Deconversion. Sorry, Steph. You're like, oh, he's fucking loud, this guy. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Deconversion Stories, right? And welcome my guest today. Stephanie Helms is with us. Oh, see, I did it now, and I'm already used to not doing it, but I did it anyways. Stephanie, you've been in one of the after parties so far and hanging out.
Yeah,
with us,
yeah.
now you're
fun.
a guest. So
Yikes! That means I'm on the spot. I guess
that's right.
It means I have to tell you something. The deep dark secrets of my life. I've got to.
There you go. Ooh,
Yikes.
Looking forward to this. I even have popcorn around here somewhere.
Oh, good. Yeah, and Mikey's got the White Castle.
White Castle.
On. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like it.
What's it like down there in St. Louis?
For me, I really want to plan a trip in like the next 2 weeks just to go down there, get some pizza, get some toasted raviolis, get a couple of things of soda that I can't get, and then just come back. I miss home.
Wait, are you telling me right here that you don't prefer the Chicago style of pizza?
That's not an everyday pizza. That's like, oh, you got promoted at work, let's get deep dish. Like it's like $60 for like a pie for like 3 or 4 adults. So it's so cost prohibitive that it's not a real thing.
Okay.
Anton's already throwing the pesos around with super stickers.
Sweet.
He's paying for his ticket to the after show.
Nice.
He's like the Latino Bill Gates or something.
Balling out of control.
Anyway, Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Oh, Neil, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's
my pleasure.
I hope it'll be fun. I don't know. I'm a little bit
it'll be fun.
skittish.
Are you? Why? Heard you did Phoebe's show.
I did. I did do some Phoebe show. Yeah, I've been on a couple of these things, and still every time it's like stage fright, etc. But it's good. Let's go. Maybe I should tell you something about me.
I was just gonna say,
or something. Is that why I'm here?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Basically, guys,
I don't remember.
If you'd like to follow Stephanie on Twitter, I have a link to her Twitter down below. Basically, what I do here is I chat with folks about, how they found their way out of their religious beliefs and how that's affected them, throughout their lives. So, if you can, just take us on that journey.
I can. I can begin at the ending. Let me just tell you, I'm a sailmaker and professional professional sailor. I live in the greater Portland area in Maine. Oh my God, I've already choked Mikey up. I can't. Oh my God,
Mikey's
what
dying.
a failure. Yeah.
I'm accepting applications.
Anyway,
for a new
so
producer.
that's what I do now, and actually I've been involved in sailing and sailmaking since I was in my 20s.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's
kind of cool.
Fun.
I've been sailing. It's awesome.
It's fun, but sewing is, not for the faint of heart.
No, I poked too many holes.
especially not sales. Pardon.
We had to take it in high school. We had to take sewing, and I was just terrible at it.
Really?
Oh yeah.
No, it's easy. It is actually pretty easy but it's not easy to do well. But anyway, just keep at it and get better. But I was born in the greater Boston area, the daughter and granddaughter, actually, of Methodist ministers. So I was born into a Methodist tradition that practice the social gospel. That their idea was sort of the more liberal wing of the church. But my grandfather died in 1942. I was born in 53, so I never knew him. My paternal grandfather, my dad, picked up the mantle, as it were, from his dad, and carried on in the ministry. Eventually, picked up the mantle of what my grandfather founded, which was Goodwill Industries.
Oh, okay.
In the year I was born, my sister often told me that, Dad was a lot happier when he was just a minister. But
Was
anyway,
it too much load on, like too big of a load on him after starting that thing up? Or?
well, I mean, picking up my grandfather's mission within the industries was a big load on him, because that was a huge piece of my family's life. The whole the way the industries got started was my grandfather was appointed by the Board of Missions of the United Methodist Church to service a poor community in Boston. He thought he was going to go to the north end. He wound up in the south end of Boston, which at the time, this is like in 1895.
Wow.
At the time was a huge melting pot. And then there was a crash, a Great Depression before the Great Depression. There are a lot
Right.
of poor people that were relying primarily on charities, churches to provide for their social needs, because this is before Social Security or anything else. Social programs didn't exist. So that was the tradition that my grandfather grew into. The industries happened because he had a parish in the south end of Boston that was very poor, and he and a friend would go around to the wealthy neighborhoods in Boston with a wheelbarrow and collect clothing and bring it back to the church, and bring it back to the church, and open the doors and say, hey, whatever you need, go ahead and take it. And
That's actually pretty cool.
It became chaos after a while. So he said, well, this is chaos. So, and some of the stuff isn't really ready to wear anyway. So maybe the folks could fix it up. And that's kind of how that whole thing got going. So
Gotcha.
Anyway, that's the kind of church environment I grew up in. That's how I was raised. Problem for me, I was born in 1953. My parents were, my dad was in his late 30s. My mom was 40. And I have a brother and sister. My sister is 15 years older than I, and my brother 17 years older than I. So it's like I'm sort of a silent generation kid, but born in the boomer era. So it was kind of a weird sort of thing. And I also had the great fortune, actually, and from my perspective anyway, of being born a trans kid. I actually say that with some delight, because I think
you told me before you knew when you were quite young.
I knew when I was very, very young. And to be, my journey out of religion had a lot to do with the fact that I was a trans kid.
Okay.
So I'm the minister's kid, Um,
Yeah.
I'm telling my mom when people often go, well, when did you come out? I'm telling my mom at the age of 3.5 when she says, good boy, I say, no, girl. It got complicated. So anyway, that my journey out of religion came through an inability to reconcile the notion of any God that existed. I mean, I sure did devoutly believe in God. I was raised in the church and devoutly believed in God, but every time, it's like, you get taught to say your prayers, right? So you say your prayers, and my prayers were
Give me the right fucking body.
my prayers were, could you please just fix this? I would really appreciate it. And over and over and over again, like both the expression, my gender expression, or my desire anyway. I mean, I was raised to be a boy child. And it was insistent. You are a boy child. I mean, it was essentially what today would be called conversion therapy.
Right.
Because, in 1950, well, that would be 1957, when you tell your folks, I'm not who you think I am, you're not going to get an awful lot of sympathy and response, because there was no understanding at the time of any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But yet it was like, I went to Sunday school, did all the stuff, but all the while, praying for some form of deliverance.
Right.
And it just never happened. So by the time it got to 11, 12, 13, it became rather critical. And I finally just basically said, I've been taught to pretend so much. I can pretend to be religious. I can pretend to be a guy. I can do this stuff, but I'm never gonna, the God thing. No, there's the notion that some divine being had a plan for my life, and yet so badly miscast me in the role. It just it blew my mind. It's like, no, this isn't gonna work. So eventually it was just, I never really told my parents, that I was an atheist. It became obvious that I wasn't devotional in any way. And again, they were kind people for their upbringing, for their generation. I mean, but they weren't ready for the conundrums that I presented to them.
They weren't ready for godless Stephanie.
They weren't ready for godless Stephanie. And it was like, I do actually have, I have a firm grounding in the actual principles of, what I understand to be the life of Christ as it's preached, as it's taught. Compassion for others, feed the poor. I mean, that was the tradition that my family took.
Right.
So it was not a pretense to follow those principles, but the God belief departed quite early. I would go into, we would ride, I grew up in a suburb in Lexington, the birthplace of American liberty, by the way.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. That's right.
Yeah, Lexington, just just a few miles outside of Boston. We would drive in on Sunday to church, and I would go when I was still going to Sunday school. I would go to Sunday school, but I would not attend the church service. My parents would go to the church service, and this is like when I was 13, 14 or so. I would go and walk around Boston, just sort of hang out on the Boston Common and stuff.
Man, I want to go there.
And just wander around town and come back back to Lexington. And they were on it. Oh, by the way, White Castle, it was White Tower in Boston, right? And there was a white tower. Yeah, there was a white tower right around the corner.
Well, hold it. Same chain.
And I would,
Same chain or like a different restaurant?
Basically same sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But I would walk around. I would walk around the corner, go to the White Tower, and get myself a hamburger and do that kind of thing. So,
because why not? Hell yeah.
Because why not? It's like, what the hell? It's like, got a couple of pennies, and
actually, we have something like that here, except it's not the White Tower or White Castle thing. We have I don't know if you guys have Nando's down there. Do you guys have Nando's?
No, chicken? I've only heard of Nando. I've only heard of Nando in myth and legend.
Well, and there was a couple dudes that owned a Nando's, but they got shit canned by the franchise, so they started up their own Barcello's, and it's exactly the same fucking thing. So maybe that's what happened.
There's that, or I know that there's Crystals, which is down south, and it's almost identical to a slider. So I don't know, like there's like sliders popping up all over the country at the same time. Conspiracy? Tune in next week.
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Is there a Mungo somewhere? It's like
suspicious.
Mungo, Mere Pawn in Game of Life, that kind of thing.
I don't know. Okay, so where were we now that we sidetracked?
I don't know. I was in my teens, I suppose, and in Boston having hamburgers and being a little baby atheist in a religious family, and just trying to negotiate that whole thing without not holding a God belief. It just went away. I just couldn't believe it. It's like, nope. And my family was cool with it. Yet disturbed. But they were cool and disturbed. Well, cool and disturbed, and about all sorts of things, about the religious belief, about what's wrong with this child. In many respects, but I eventually, I went to college and actually got married. My dad and my entire family. We did not get married in the church.
Yeah, I didn't think you probably would do that.
We didn't get married in the church, but my dad performed the ceremony.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, and we rewrote the vows, but we threw him a bone for a little bit of God in there, so I just sort of it was easier walking away from, by the time I was in my late teens, early 20s and stuff, I just wasn't going to church at all anyway. Right. It was just, nope, I gotta do it. But it was easier walking away from religion in my family's context. It was like my mom always knew. My dad, not so much. That I was trans. she always knew that this was going to be a problem.
Really?
Yeah, she talked to her sister a whole bunch about it. She wouldn't talk to anybody else, and I only found out about that after my sister died, and I'm talking to my cousin, and she says, "Oh yeah, we knew. All those times you used to come out to Upton and hang around, and you'd be outside, and my mom and your mom would be in there, and they'd be smoking cigarettes and drinking wine," which was the only time they got to do that, because Methodists don't do that kind of thing. But
allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, right? But that it was kind of an open secret in some ways, and it was something that I had to reckon with, because even if it was an open secret, I had to keep this. I was one of the people that had to keep the secret.
Of course.
Right. So it's a very different time. It was a very different kind of upbringing than I hope a lot of kids who are trans today don't have to experience that. So I was, I as far as religion is concerned, toss that shit off early on in my life. That was not a big deal. As far as other burdens are concerned, I didn't, I lost my fear of hell early because I thought this was hell.
I could see that for sure.
It's just, nothing could possibly be worse than this.
Right.
I could go into all sorts of childhood trauma, but I don't think it's necessary unless you want me to get all kinds of psychological and get down deep on this here couch. But
well, that's
I don't
entirely
know
up to you. Is there specific things you may want to share, or
I don't know. I don't know. Ask me something.
Well, you were saying that earlier, something about, kind of like conversion therapy. Did they ever approach you with anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, when I as I said, when I was 3.5, I had a kind of a bad accident when I was 2.5, wherein I stepped into boiling water.
Ouch.
2.5-year-old child, which is when my memory is, the reason my memory goes back that far is because of, I think it's partially because of that trauma. When I was 3.5 years old, I stepped into boiling water.
We often remember the most dramatic events in our lives.
Right. So, part of it was pretty severely burned left foot. Right. And part of the therapy was after things got healed, was in order to prevent the scar tissue on my toes from causing my toes to go like this, like, it's called roping, right? In order to prevent that sort of thing, what you need to do is stretch your, curl your toes constantly, right? Just to keep the skin from roping up and causing, causing deformities that way. And so part of my job, like when I was it took maybe 3, 4, 5 months to heal. Part of my job was to pick up marbles. It was kind of a cool game. My mom would throw marbles on the floor, and I would, with my foot, pick up a marble one by one, and it's like, grab the marble and stick it in the cup, grab another marble, stick it in the cup, and walk around and do that. It was kind of a fun game. And my mom at one point said, good boy. And I said, no, girl.
Girl. Yeah.
And she washed my mouth out with soap.
What? That's not even a swear word.
Well, you
No.
shouldn't. Anything you're
No.
not supposed to say, get soap.
Yeah. It's not a swear word, but it's not, no, you're not. So that's the kind of, that's the sort of thing. When I was like 6-ish, lost my second tooth. The first time I lost a tooth, I got a dime under the pillow, and I was like, that's really cool. And so I lost another tooth, and this time I was able to write, scrawl anyway. So I penned a note. I don't know if I have the tooth fairy sitting around here, but I penned a note to the tooth fairy. And I left it under the pillow with the tooth.
With the dime, cheap ass.
Right. Yeah, well, I didn't say that. I wasn't gonna fuck around with the tooth fairy, because what I really wanted the tooth fairy to do was make me a girl. Right. So that's what the note said.
Oh, is that even in the tooth fairy's wheelhouse?
I figured it had to be, because it wasn't in fucking Jesus's wheelhouse. I mean, I was like, what are you going to do? So I leave this note under my pillow. And of course, it wasn't the tooth fairy that found the fucking note. It was my mother.
Oh, that note wasn't for her.
I know. I know. I mean, I should have made it, I should have made a federal case out of it, right? It's like 6-year-old kid is going to make a federal case out of it. It's like, this note wasn't there.
She opened someone else's note.
How dare you? I'm supposed to say, right? But no, at that point, it was it was a very hard moment, because it was like, you can't be this.
Mm-hmm.
Dead name. You can't be this. It's not. If you are, if you keep going down this road, we're going to need to take you to a doctor.
What? Wow. Mm-hmm. And when they say doctor, do they mean like a psychologist type doctor? They
kind of meant. It was clear to me. It was terrifying to me, because it wasn't. Honey. This is puzzling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand, but I love you, and I think maybe we can find someone who could help us with this, because I can see that you're in pain, and I can see that you're there's something here. It was basically denial. It's like, no. We will take you to someone who can fix you.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And the way in 1959 you get fixed for this sort of thing is convulsive shock therapy.
Fuck.
And that was sort of, it wasn't stated, but I was scared shitless. And it was like, no, I'll never do that again.
I'm actually doing shock therapy to myself right now with this.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's because you've got, but it's not.
Not the same. Totally
not quite exactly the same. So it was just, that was ugly. And for whatever reason, I didn't have a very normal adolescence, and at the age of 13, I got we're concerned for our boy. Let's take him to a endocrinologist. It's like let's go to my pediatrician. Goes, well, I don't know what's going on with the kid, but I've got this. Here's a reference to an endocrinologist, and you can take them there and have everything acid, and the NDoc basically said, oh, well, he's got very low testosterone. Perhaps we could boost it.
Yes, they used to believe that was part of the problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, and perhaps we could boost it, and I absolutely fucking refused. Nope. We can wait. I can be good, but don't do that. And it's my mom relented and said, no, we won't do that. We can wait and see how things happen. And when I was 14,
before you
dad,
go on, Stephanie, before you carry on, I kind of want to know, like, your mom relented, you said. Do you think that maybe underneath it all, she kind of sort of believed you and felt kind of bad about it, or yeah?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
Yep, I do. I honestly do. And, my sister knew all along. I mean, that
sisters are wise.
Sisters are very wise. Yeah, usually.
No, one of mine's an anti-vaxxer, so I'm not going to go that far. But
well, my sister was wonderful. She taught me how to play jacks.
I don't even know how to play jacks. I think you got to bounce a ball and pick up as many as you can. Is that pretty much the gist
basically
of it?
it? Yeah.
All right.
Anyway,
I can pog like a son of a bitch, though.
But yeah, she did. And when I was 14, my dad my brother had gone to the task school in Connecticut, which is basically a prep school for Yale, and my brother went to Taft and then Yale, and that was my dad's dream for his second son. And so I'm like in 8th grade, and my mom basically did it was rather traditional. She took care of the home books, right? All the home business. So she had her desk in their bedroom where she kept all the stuff, and she called me in one day and said, we've been looking at where you should go for high school. And I'm sitting there going, oh shit. and we've had an invitation from the task school to have you go to the task school. Now, the task school is an all-boys prep school.
Oh, for fuck's sakes.
And I was I had it pretty well sussed out that was where we were going with this. And I sat down on their bed in the bedroom and just started bawling. And they said, you can't do this. You cannot do this. I mean, no, you can't do this. Oh, what's the matter? You can't do this, and you know why. And that's, I can't, I wouldn't be able to handle it, And so in that case, my mom did, I think that the kid would be better off here. So, yeah, I mean, there was compassion, there was understanding, there was a whole bunch of stuff. I mean,
it sounds like she started in her own way, without being too revealing to Dad, sort of fighting in your corner.
Yeah, she was, but still, it was there's only so far I can fight, you know, and
Right.
maybe I wasn't good. Maybe I wasn't strong enough to fight either. But I think it was a conspiracy of the time and upbringing of my folks. I mean, I
Mhm.
feel actually quite lucky that it could have been that I'd grown up in a fundamentalist household and gotten the crap beat out of me the entire time.
Yep, that's true.
But I did not, and my falling away from the faith wasn't was, while disappointing, wasn't anywhere near as hard for my parents to deal with as my not being,
A boy.
a boy.
Right.
And it's like, are you queer? No, I don't think so. Although my first intimate relationship was with a guy in high school, but yet
Mhm.
I went on to, play the role. And in some respects, that's probably the biggest regret that I have, as far as just having had to do that.
Mhm.
And I did it sincerely.
Of course.
I did the best I could, but when I was 44, I just couldn't take it anymore. And my ex is still one of my best friends, absolute best friends.
My roommate is my ex, and we are much better this way than we ever were in a relationship. Let's put it that way.
I mean, we didn't, as for when eventually the divorce happened, and the divorce happened on account of the fact that she didn't want to be a lesbian, which, I can understand that.
Sure.
It's
She probably wasn't one, so.
oh yeah, but it was like the part of me that, at least a part of me that that was attractive to her, was who I actually was. And while she was like, damn it, I always thought there was something about you, but I didn't think it was this.
Right.
And so the divorce was totally amicable. We walked, we didn't, there was no lawyer involved. We walked to the courthouse, and
Wow.
both of us in tears. I mean, she gave me a ring. I gave her a ring. And we parted, sadly, and she's very well now. She's got a life partner to carry on, and I don't, but hi. If you want any date, never mind. That's a little too fucking risque at this point. But
welcome to the Stephanie Helms relationship
dating
video
game. Yeah. Hello.
Can we make this a reality show, like For the Love of Stephanie?
Can't you come up with another name or something? There's some other, it's got to be something a little more sporty than that.
Like For the Love of is like the trope. Like that's what all the shows, like For the Love of this celebrity, For the Love of that one. How about when did my sales with Stephanie?
There you go.
This is why.
Taking the rest of the night. Taking the rest of the night off.
Yeah, you're not topping yourself now, Mikey.
Right there. That right there is an Etchells emblem. I sell in Etchells. Yeah.
Stephanie is awesome.
Aw, thank you, Derek.
Thanks for the $5 too, Derek.
No kidding. 5 smackers. Yay.
Have lunch tomorrow. Yay.
You can go to White Castle.
Yeah, and get a couple sliders.
I ate like 6 of them in quick succession. I don't feel very good.
Well, try not eating 6, Mikey.
I don't have an off switch. It's just on, and then it breaks in the on position, and then I run out of gas, and that's
I hear you.
how I live my life.
Did the same thing with 20 wings last night.
So the other
run out.
So the other thing about my it wasn't just my grandfather and father who were Methodist preachers. It was my brother-in-law and my brother.
Oh, geez.
And an uncle, and I actually have a nephew and a niece who are active in the ministry in parishes in
How do they all feel about all this?
As I said, my sister was kind of, I thought of her as my secret keeper.
Mm.
I mean, she, when I had gender affirming surgery, she flew to Chicago and drove from Chicago to beautiful Neenah, Wisconsin in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
And when I woke up in my room, she was there beside me, and she just looked at me and said, "Hi, sis. I'm glad you finally made it."
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
now you're trying to make me cry now.
Well, it's a really poignant memory. So both she and her husband, who was in the faith, they both were so supportive, and my niece and nephew, or everyone in my family. My parents had actually passed by the time I transitioned, because, as I said, they were considerably older than I. They were in their 40s, and I transitioned in my 40s.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad actually it's sort of died in the midst of my transition. And he had Alzheimer's, so it was not like he knew a great deal. But I really think, actually, that if they had lived to see me, they probably would have accepted me.
You think so?
Because the times had changed enough. I mean, I don't know, but anyway, as far as the like, my uncle was also a minister, and his family was very, okay, there she is. It was all good. And there was and they weren't really particularly concerned about my lack of fidelity to the Methodist Church either.
Mm-hmm.
I feel pretty lucky in a lot of ways, despite all of the, despite the bullshit.
Right. Well,
I feel pretty lucky.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a lot worse. Like you were saying earlier, they could have been fundamentalists, and things could have gone south big time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it could have been, instead of, hey, white middle-ish class. I mean, we never had a whole bunch of money. I mean, my dad never made a whole ton of money, but we were comfortable, upper middle class, I guess you'd say.
Mhm.
And good school system in Lexington. Went to a good university. It's like all that stuff, and we could have. It could have been, instead of the Taft School, it could have been Foster's Christian Academy or something or another. It's like, and you are going, fuck
Yeah.
you.
Right. Put you in chains or something.
Right. It really could have been that way, which is why that's why I consider myself very, very lucky, and it's also why I get a little annoyed with and I see this with atheists who have come out of more fundamentalist Christian cults, beliefs, etc., and so forth,
Mhm.
who they become atheists, and they basically think that the church that they grew up in deceived them in some way. It's like, this is there's this monumental deception that their indoctrination has led them into, that they had to fight a lot harder than I did to get out of, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, you're putting up this fight, get out of the church. You risk breaking ties with family and home and all this stuff, depending on the level of control that the particular group has. And then you get out and you basically tell another atheist that everybody in the Christian faith is a dickhead. How could they possibly be how could they possibly believe this nonsense? I mean, I read all this stuff, and it turns out to be nonsense, and blah 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 blah. It's like, the problem with that is that while that may be true, there are people who cling to a religious faith who are kind at heart,
Mhm.
whose religious faith leads them, as my nephew and niece, and as most of my family, all of my family really, who are still in the faith, whose faith leads them to kindness
Mhm.
and charity and compassion and empathy. I mean, there are people of faith who believe in social justice
Of course
and
there are.
who work for social justice, and a whole bunch of atheists will come. I've been in some discussions on on various Discord servers, like the atheist community Discord, where there'll be an atheist in there basically saying all Christians are hypocrites. And
Yeah.
if you don't, they may say they believe in this, that, and the other thing, but look at the Bible. Look at what the Bible says. The Bible
Mhm.
says slavery's okay. The Bible says women are shit. The Bible says this and that and the other thing. It's like, I'm fucking listening to a Bible thumping idiot. And
It's
you're
what
a
it sounds
fucking
like, right?
atheist. And you're a fucking atheist. It's like, you are telling me that I should wish that my nephew in his parish tells his congregation that his aunt is going to hell, because that's what the Bible says. Well, that's not what my nephew preaches. And
Right.
it's not what my niece preaches. And it's more important to me what you do with your faith. I mean, if you're going to do the kinds of things that people of faith are doing in Texas to
Fucking
make it
horrifying.
impossible for children like myself to, to basically force kids like me to be like me and have to go through that agony because the Bible tells them so. That's bad. It's not the faith itself.
Horrifying.
It's not the faith itself.
No.
It's what you do with it. And I would rather have people like my nephew, people like my niece, telling their congregation, trans people are God's children, just like you. They're your siblings, just like you. I would rather have that message be being preached from pulpits and having people suck it up and do that, and thereby keep laws like the ones in Texas and Idaho and Tennessee and Alabama and Arkansas and all over this fucking country. I would rather have people preaching from the pulpit that Jesus loves everyone. Because to me, we can have as many, we're a tiny, atheists are a tiny proportion of the voting public.
Yes, unfortunately.
But until we are a majority, and until actually, to be quite honest, there are plenty of transphobic atheists out there too. Yes. Yeah. And until we have more people preaching compassion to whatever community they're in, be it Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Jewish or whatever, until we have, or atheist for that matter, until we have people with more compassion speaking to the causes of social justice, LGBTQ rights, equity, women's rights, equity, the right to bodily autonomy. Until we have that happening, I want more people preaching that, right? Than being worried about somebody being Christian and therefore being ipso facto hypocritical for preaching that. Right. That's the kind of bullshit that drives me crazy.
Oh, agreed. The other day, a friend of mine and I were talking about the term transphobic. And he had kind of an interesting thought on it. He said, I think you should use the word more like trans-ignorant, because people don't really know and they misunderstand, and then they become idiots and say stupid shit.
Well, that's funny. And, looking back over time, I think it's actually harder these days for trans people than it was 24 years ago when I transitioned. Because in a lot of ways, since it wasn't front page news half the time, and with people getting all going to their legislatures and stop the panic. We got the trans. Oh my God, all our kids are being trans, et cetera, and so forth. Right. Back then it was like, people kind of knew about it. Trans people were on TVs, like, the Jerry Springer show. I always had that. Surprise! Yeah. She used to be a man, that kind of thing.
The big shock or whatever.
It's just total, sensationalistic bullshit. And there's what was the documentary? Disclosure, I think it was. There's a Netflix documentary called
Don't think I've seen that.
called Disclosure, which covers the portrayal of trans people in popular culture throughout the years. And it's really fucking well done. It's really, 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 really well done. It's worth a watch. Anyway, but back then, 24 years ago, it wasn't a matter of there was nothing in law. There are no things necessarily in law. Now, granted, there were some things in law in various places, like you can't, some technicalities, like you can't change your birth, you couldn't change your birth certificate unless you did X, Y, Z, and sometimes you couldn't change it at all. You couldn't change your driver's license, you couldn't change your passport unless you jumped through certain hoops.
I thought it was just a matter of paying for it. I thought you had to pay to change your name and stuff like that.
Name changes are different. You can change your name to anything. You can change your name to
you're referring also to the gender thing too, right?
No, yeah. I mean, to having all of your documents reflect actually who you are. There were more legal impediments back then than there are today, but there weren't laws saying you cannot do this. You can't receive gender affirming hormone therapy. There are no laws saying you can't do these things. There are a lot of procedural hoops to jump through if you did want to, pursue medical transition.
Right.
But today there's so much. This is the double-edged sword of visibility, right? It's like today there are more people, younger people. People are becoming more comfortable at an earlier age, which is obviously one of the that's close to my heart, dear to my heart.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
Is if you have a trans kid, ask them how, maybe, people who are trans are gonna stick that way, but they're not, gender is really flexible. So you gotta let the individual kid play with the idea. And some kids will be persistent and insistent and consistent in their gender identity, and then you deal with that, and that's a normal thing.
Support them
and support them. And some kids will say, "Well, yeah, I really fucking love lipstick, but I'm a boy." I think that
perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Gender expression, just like why are certain things gendered in the first place? It's like it's the trucks and dolls and all that other bullshit.
Yeah,
I mean that's. But you can be divergent in your gender expression. But your gender identity, on the other hand, it's something innate. It's something you feel.
Absolutely is.
Anywho, it's so much more difficult today because it's become so much of a trigger issue for pushing forward programs that in their nature are, for the most part, oppressive to women. I mean, I think that the link between bodily autonomy, abortion, choice, that sort of thing is very, very solid. And I think it's not, I think that trans kids are hoisted upon the sword of the right to panic people into thinking that it's a good idea for us, society as a whole, to well, if we can stop parents from being compassionate with their children, we can stop, and we can prosecute doctors for treating their patients with compassion. We can do the same with abortion. We can do the same with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's a cynical and, in the end, very cruel ploy.
Yes, agreed. It is absolutely.
Anyway,
Well,
thank you for the opportunity to rant on that a little bit.
my pleasure. And yeah, for sure. These are important topics, I think. So they need to be discussed. And the more people discuss it, then more bullshit's lifted off of it too, right? So,
yep.
And it's all about normalization of these kinds of things, because they've been so underground for so long that I think people got used to that. And now that it's all coming out, thanks to modern day information techniques, people are freaking out because they don't get it.
It's not like trans people haven't existed the entire time.
In all of human history. What are you talking about?
Yeah, the entire time.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of like White Castle.
White Castle originally came from what, 6,000 years ago in the Sumerians?
I believe so. I believe that actually White Castle was, White Castle was probably, it was probably the first White Castle was founded by the ancient Hebrews that came to the Americas. Settled right around Missouri or something.
Missouri.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I
now you
actually,
sound Canadian.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Well, I'm from Maine. It's like
pretty close.
It's up there,
pretty
somewhere.
Close. Atlantic time.
Anyway.
All right. Well, Stephanie, thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
Hey, it was fun.
Nice having you on. Yeah, it's great to have you on. Finally, we talked about it a while back, and then
we
finally made it happen.
And finally, it happened. Woo!
So, but we are going to do an after party. You're good for that, right?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. You've been in one already, so.
Oh, sure. Party. They're pretty fun. You should stick around for it. You never know. Crazy things happen in Neil's after parties.
Indeed, they do.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
Mikey, your confidentiality is absolutely assured.
Thank you.
Elliot's got some good words right there. Stephanie rocks right there. Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
Canadian Alderman just did the triple coins thing there. There you go. I know. Fuck. What a guy.
Canadian Alderman. He's even further that way.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if all the states were gonna pick dodgeball teams, I think Maine would still be on Canada's team, even if it was just. It's like you guys is Canada.
Well, I want to be. Here's my last pitch here. I want to be on Atlantic time.
No,
I want to be in the Atlantic time zone. I want to be along with our neighbor to the north, New Brunswick. I want to be on the Atlantic time zone because I want to be on the western edge of a time zone, because that means that in the summertime, the sun's out until 10:30, which means I get to go sailing all day long. It's great.
I don't know if you know this. I learned this the other day. I had no idea, but apparently the Atlantic Ocean is saltier than the Pacific.
Indeed it is.
I didn't know that.
Why?
It beats the hell out of me, man. I have no idea, but it's a truth.
Maybe the Sahara.
Sahara, man, could be.
There's a lot of blow off from that desert.
Yeah,
could be the Mid-Atlantic Ridge too.
Yes, that could be too. There's a lot. There's sand here from the Sahara. Sahara sand is all over the globe, dude. It just gets blown around in the atmosphere. Neil, the 604 sailor man. Yep. Thanks, that's nice.
The 604 Sailor Man.
I like the like
in
this
a
one here.
garbage can.
Yeah,
He likes to go
been-
swimming.
Missouri White Castle. Try our Garden of Eden salad.
Oh,
Nice. Tons of mice. And how appropriate is that, right?
Stag says it's full of tears.
Yeah.
Brexit tears.
And by the way, Stags, I was going to reply to this earlier, but I didn't want to cut Stephanie off. You are absolutely correct, and that's what I said to my friend that I was speaking with. You're absolutely correct. All right, well, let's do that. Let's get into an after party. If you guys would like to be involved in the after party, please let myself or Mikey know via Twitter or Facebook or whatever social media you happen to have us on. And
Nice.
we will drop a link for you, and you can jump in here with Stephanie and Mikey and myself and hang out with us for a little while. But Mikey, thanks again for being an amazing producer. And as the little scroll thingy says, there is a link to the after party in the description box below, along with a reminder of Stephanie's link to her Twitter. You can check her out there and give her a follow there.
Yeah, I mostly talk bullshit over there, but
Doesn't that what all of us do?
indeed.
I just tell jokes.
Yeah, me too, for the most part.
I put
and argue with
one thing I do put over there from time to time are really kind of cool sailing pictures and stuff, and
That'd be cool.
I talk about yacht racing, you know.
Yacht racing. Every time I think of yacht racing, I think of that. It was a John Candy movie, and they're eating popcorn, talking about it, and all of a sudden he starts choking. And he's like, that's all I can think of.
Overboard?
No, not Overboard. That's not John Candy. It's the one where he takes on the yacht guys with that piece of crap sailor. And shut up, Mikey. Thank you to everyone in the chats over on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. We'll talk more about this in the after party. And thank you to my amazing patrons. You guys are the heart and soul of the show. Thank you for doing what you do for me. I appreciate every one of it. And you guys, all the other stuff that I do is linked below in the description box. But we do have these little things that Mikey's calling stingers, or if that's what they're actually called.
Yeah, they're called that.
Why don't we show them a couple?
Oh, am I pushing that one? I can push it.
Sure.
Let's do this one.
My friends, Neil the 604 Atheist and Randolph Daddy Richardson are starting their own call-in show called True North Talk. Go and subscribe so you don't miss their launch.
Come and watch me and some other great hosts on the relaunched The Non-Profits, airing Sundays at 3 p.m. Central. Go and subscribe so you don't miss it.
I keep forgetting to take that one out. Hold on.
Yeah, because that one was all squirrely.
Yeah, the Beelzebub one. No one likes that one. But me and Sweet thought it was funny.
Well, you couldn't understand him really. That's why.
Student Dr. Ben is always cool. Kidding me?
Oh yeah, Stuart Dr. Ben's awesome. All right, guys. Like I always say at the end of the interviews, like the late great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys in the after party. Linked below. Cheers, guys.
Bye.